WHO report. I expect we'll let our review conclude, and then we'll look for an opportunity for him to speak to it. But I can certainly confirm for you that he shares these concerns. They are coming directly from him and directly from our national security team, who has looked at what the report has presented to date. They're still reviewing and share the concerns issued in that statement that made those concerns clear. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I just want to piggyback off of that as well. World Health Organization Director General Tedros, one of his primary concerns was that the report may have glossed over, if you will, the possibility that the virus escaped from a lab. Is that a central concern of the White House as well? And then when you talk about cooperation, has China not cooperated enough in the White House's opinion?
Well, they have not been transparent. They have not provided underlying data. That certainly doesn't qualify as cooperation. The analysis performed to date from our experts, their concern is that there isn't additional support for one hypothesis. It doesn't lead us to any closer of an understanding or greater knowledge than we had 6 to 9 months ago about the origin. It also doesn't provide us guidelines or steps, recommended steps on how we should prevent this from happening in the future. And those are imperative.
And so that centers on the hypothesis that would involve the lab.
Again, it doesn't lead to it doesn't provide us greater understanding of the origin of the virus.
And the second question, just on the next legislative package, has the president started to reach out to moderates, to centrist Republicans as well, and to kind of woo them to get ahead of some of the things that we saw with the last package?
Woo them, I like it. The president will be, of course, directly engaged in this effort to move this package forward. I will say that what he views his role is laying out what a vision is, a broad vision, a bold vision for how we can invest in America, American workers, our communities. We're also, though, very open to hearing ideas and proposals from members of Congress, Democrats or Republicans. We know that 80% or more of people in this country, Democrats and Republicans, support investing in infrastructure. And of course they will. Of course they do. We're 13th in the world as it relates to infrastructure. We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. That doesn't make a lot of sense to most people across the country. More than 1/3 of bridges in this country need repair. That's 231,000. That's a lot of bridges. 1 in 5 miles, or 886,000 miles of our highways and major roads are in poor conditions. Those aren't issues where Democrats just have concerns. Republicans have concerns, independents, people who don't see themselves as political. And he believes that investing, we can't afford not to invest in improving our infrastructure. There are questions about people may have different ideas about how to pay for it. We're open to hearing them. So hopefully people will bring forward ideas.
Last question. The skinny budget is due out this week. What programs or agencies should we expect to see a boost in funding?
I know people love the term skinny budget, but it's actually just a discretionary guide. So it should be out soon, and we'll wait for it to come out. And then I'm sure we'll have an update from our budget, our own B team. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, Jen. Could you provide a bit more insight into why the White House has felt the need over the last few days to really clarify the vice president's role at the border? Was that something that she requested a clarification on?
I actually think that members of the media deserve to have an understanding of what her exact role was. And the president, when he was the vice president, played a very specific role too, where he was running point on the Northern Triangle. He told the story at the press conference last week about how the president called him back from Turkey, I think it was. And he wants the vice president to play a similar role and engaging with these countries, engaging with their leaders, figuring out how to invest best, how to work in partnership, how to prevent corruption from taking over, to put in place steps that will make the journey less desirable. That is certainly a big assignment, and one the president is confident the vice president will take on.
Was the plan always for her to focus on the Northern Triangle countries, the root causes, as opposed to the border, or did something change?
That was always the plan, and that was the announcement.
Okay. I'd like to find out what the White House thinks about what's happening in San Diego, where some public school teachers are providing in-person instruction at the San Diego Convention Center to migrant children before their own public school students. And these kids, of course, about 130,000 of them have been at home doing online learning for about a year now. So what does the White House think about that?
Well, I know you guys have done a fair amount of reporting on this, so maybe you'll have more details. As I understand it, San Diego public schools are opening in early April.
April 12th to hybrid learning.
Okay. And students will be back in the classroom. And as I understand it, this is related part-time. And certainly, you know, our objective from the White House, opening up 5 days a week at majority of schools across the country. And they're on spring break right now. And this is related to volunteering or being paid. I'm not even sure. You'd have to ask the local school district during spring break for these migrant kids.
Yes, so the San Diego County Supervisor, Jim Desmond, he says, you know, I think it's great that there's in-person learning for unaccompanied minors from Central America, but I wish every child in San Diego County was allowed the same opportunity for in-person teaching. So I guess the question is, you know, does the White House think that this sends the right message to these 130,000 kids in San Diego and their parents who've been stuck at home for the last year?
Well, I'm just saying that context is important. And these kids are going back to school for hybrid learning. We, of course, want that to be 5 days a week, and we're confident we'll get there early next month. And I believe they're also on spring break right now. So these teachers would be, I'm not sure if it's volunteer or paid. You'd have to ask the local school district while the kids are on spring break, which I think the context is pretty important.
Okay. And I've got
go
one more
ahead.
question, sorry, about space.
Go ahead.
You know, the Biden administration, they just announced its intention to retain the National Space Council, and this is on top of the White House voicing its support for the Space Force,
Yes.
NASA's Artemis program. I mean, these are 3 programs or policies that President Trump and the Trump administration put in place. So would it be fair to say that space is and space policy is one of the few areas where President Biden actually agrees with his predecessor?
I think that sounds accurate to me. Look, I think the president believes that the National Space Council, as you just conveyed or just asked about, provides an opportunity to generate national space policy strategies, synchronize on America's space activities at a time of unprecedented activity. It's also an opportunity to generate by America's own activities in space. So it certainly is a program or a council, I should say, he's excited to keep in place, and one I think it's fair to say he agrees with the past administration's maintaining the program. Go ahead in the back.
The White House has been talking about a lot of different types of infrastructure over the last few weeks leading up to the announcement tomorrow. Can you give us a sense of what the general breakdown is going to be on, you know, clean energy and climate type projects versus roads and bridges?
I know we will have an extensive fact sheet that will break down everything for you. It is quite long. It is quite long, and I don't want to get too far ahead of the president. But I will. Let me see if I can give you a little bit more of a breakdown, not in terms of the numbers, but so certainly investing in. We've talked about this a little bit. Roads, rails, and bridges is part of it. The president believes that we can do that in a way where we can create good paying, clean energy jobs, union jobs. That's part of his vision for investing in industries of the future. He also believes there's more we can do on broadband and ensuring that the far too large percentage of the American people who don't have access, and we invest in that. There's a lot of ways to do that, I will say, though, and he's very open to the ideas coming from Congress on how to do it. And they may have different perspectives on how to do it, the right way to invest and to do it. But he sees, clean energy and clean energy jobs as central to his own vision and his own objectives. You'll certainly hear him talk about that tomorrow. And but the speech is really about, it's about jobs. It's about investing in the industries of the future. And it's about rebuilding parts of our communities that have long been forgotten.
And does the White House have a response to this new Chinese law finalized earlier today that essentially allows them to vet parliamentary candidates in Hong Kong for so-called non-patriots to not be allowed to run for office?
I know we have certainly expressed concerns about the undemocratic steps of the Chinese government in the past. I'll have to check with our national security team. I had not asked them about this specific piece, but we will get back to you shortly after the briefing. Go ahead, Chris.
So Chuck Schumer is urging people to write and email the president, the White House, in hopes that he will cancel up to $50,000 of student loan debt. Why do you think that Schumer has such a fundamentally different reading of what the president can and should do? And if you could answer yes or no, has the president ruled out taking unilateral action on this yet?
No, he has not. I will say that I do have some good student loan news for you, which you didn't even know you were going to tee up for me, but we will be expanding the pause on student loan interest and collections to the more than 1 million borrowers who are in default on a loan that was made by a private lender in the old bank-based loan program known as the Federal Family Education Loan Program. The step particularly protects 800,000 borrowers who are at risk of having their tax refunds seized. That's actually a pretty significant steps. The president continues to call on Congress to cancel $10,000 in debt for student loan borrowers. That's something Congress could take an action on, and he'd be happy to sign. We're still taking a closer look at our options on student loans. This includes examining the authorities we have, the existing loan forgiveness programs that are clearly not working as well as they should. This includes borrower defense, total and permanent disability charges. There's a lot of steps we're looking at.